you doing, guys? My name's Ken Rodenbaugh, and I'm a nurse at Southern Ocean Medical Center, New Jersey. And I've been a nurse for almost 10 years now. The company I work for, they do this awesome thing about furthering education and teaching your peers on something that they don't know too much about. So I was trying to think of something that I could do, think of something outside the box, because sepsis, pneumonia, CHF, all that stuff is already taken care of. So what could I do outside the box? So I was like, oh, substance abuse in workplace. Not really much education in on that. I was a nurse for 7 years before. I saw 3 nurses get caught diverting narcotics and don't know what happened to them. Don't know what became of them, if they're gonna practice again, how they're doing. I don't know. I didn't know if there was any help for them. I have no idea. And really, I didn't even care. And most people don't. You know, as long as it doesn't affect them, they're okay with that. So I started doing some research. And the first question I wanna ask you guys that are sitting in this room, watching at home, is when I say drug addict, what do you think of? Now, just looking around this room, there's a lot of different sizes, shapes, ages, whatever. So your interpretation may be different from your interpretation, may be different from your interpretation. Sweaty, younger guy and crawling into the ER, asking for help, wanting help. This is stereotypically what I see. This is, you know, what I see come into the ER. But maybe you have a different thinking of what an addict is. Not so stereotypical anymore, and more and more legalized marijuana gets, this isn't becoming such a typical picture of a drug addict. But it used to be back in the day, and a certain generation may think of it as that. Going in the city, don't give this guy $1, what's he gonna do with it, right? Weekend warriors, we all have different images. And unfortunately, the most common knowledge, the most common thinking today is needle in the arm. Needle in the arm, that's what a drug addict is, right? Marijuana is better than a pill, pill's better than a powder, powder's better than a needle. So as long as I'm not doing a needle, I'm okay. And when we think of drug addicted places, cities, towns, whatever, you know, here in New Jersey, we may think of Camden or Newark or Jersey City, but we don't think about Toms River. 566 towns, boroughs, municipalities, whatever you want to call them, in New Jersey. 566, Toms River's number 8. And right next door to this little town of Barnegat is a town called Lacey, which you don't know about unless you live there or live by there. They're number 11 out of 566. Now, trade New Jersey out for you watching at home with your state, Louisiana, Florida, California, Texas, whatever it may be, and throw in some suburbs in there, because that's what's happening all over the country, and we're just closing our eyes to it. So now when I ask you what a drug addict is, do you think of this? Who's a drug addict here? The mom, the dad, they're having dinner with the family, everything's good, the bills are paid, cars in the garage. You think of this, a hardworking business person, successful, a lot of money, shirt and tie, never wear the same socks twice. Successful graduate, ready to take on the world. I don't expect drug addicts to graduate college, right? We're nurses. Do we think one of us would really have a problem? We know better, right? For you new nurses out there, how hard you work for your license? You work pretty hard, right? Why would you want to give that up? Why would you want to lose that? So this is all about what you guys can do. This is about what you can do to help somebody that's struggling, because the person that's struggling doesn't know they're struggling. The person that has a problem with substance abuse doesn't realize it. And when they do, it's usually too late. So what can you do? How does this affect you? Maybe you're working in pod A, and you think somebody has a problem, so you're going to be in pod B. Or maybe you know you're not working the same days, the same weekend as that person, so you'll be okay. But this does affect you, and I'm going to show you why. And I'm going to show you how you guys can do something to stop this. So welcome to the 21st century, guys, right? Got a problem? Take a pill. You're too fat? Take a pill. You're too skinny? Take a pill. Too tired? Take a pill. Too much energy? Take a pill. Pill, right? For everything. So what happens if I have somebody that comes into my triage room, they sit down on the stool, and they tell me how their blood pressure medication is not working, they're upset with their doctor, and they're ready to fire the 3rd doctor in a year because nothing's working, and they're overweight, out of shape, and God forbid I tell them, well, you should really start exercising or try to lose some weight. That's not allowed, right? Back in the late 90s, there was this miracle drug called OxyContin that was supposed to help the pain of the cancer patient, the pain that's astronomical in people with cancer, Some of us know people with cancer. Some of us know the struggle behind it. We're supposed to help them. Now, I graduated in 1999. I see all different ages out here. And I don't know when you graduated, but when I was in high school in 1999, Percocet, Vicodin, Xanax, that wasn't really the drug of choice. We didn't really go looking for pills. There was other things out there. But as you can see through the graph, through the progression, it's gotten worse and worse. You know, kids nowadays go into their parents' house, and they don't go into the liquor cabinet, they go into the medicine cabinet. And they open the medicine cabinet, dip out the pills, and they swallow them, they see what happens. That's where we're at now. You can't close your eyes and make believe it's not happening, because it is. So luckily for us as nurses in the hospital, we don't have heroin, right? We don't have heroin. What happens when that person that's put on Percocet comes in with back pain, and they said, I've been on Percocets for 8 years, and now my doctor's office has a note, moved out of town on the office when I went in there. What do? All of a sudden, they're addicted to pain pills. They don't know what to do. Most of the time, the story for people that get addicted to pills is not because they wanted to. It's because the doctor had put them on the medication. It's because injuries, back pain, neck pain, whatever. All of a sudden now, they're addicted to this pill, and they don't know what to do. So it's a lot easier to get a $10 bag of heroin just this one time. Just this one time, just so I feel better, so I'm not sick, just so I'm okay. And tomorrow, I'll be all right. I'll make a doctor's appointment. I'll go to the ER. But the problem is, in 2 weeks, that one time, that habit could be 10 times worse. In just 2 weeks of doing heroin, your problem could be on 10 times. So then after doing powder, right, for a while, all of a sudden you're saying, I'm not putting a needle in my arm. Powder's better than a needle. I'm not doing that, so that's okay. I'm good. But then you figure it's a lot cheaper to put a needle in your arm than buy 10 bags, right? And then that's where the cycle begins. So we don't have heroin, but what do we have? What do we have in the ER? I'm pointing at you.
Okay, we have Percocet, we have opiate.
All right, can you catch?
Let's see.
All right. Percocet, opiates, Dilaudid. We have all kinds of other stuff to play with in the ER, right? We may not have heroin, but we have other stuff. There's other substitutes there. Ocean County, New Jersey. Little Ocean County, New Jersey, one of the leading counties in the country in overdose deaths. This is where you guys are living at right now. And it's only getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So what are you going to do about it? This can't happen to nurses. Nurses know better, right? Maybe you're sitting there going, why am I here? I know not to do drugs. I know, just say no, right? We grow up, dare class, just say no, drugs are bad. Why am I here? Let them suffer. They made the choice, right? It's not really a disease. Is it a disease? How can it be a disease? Well, the ADA does recognize addiction as a disease, but to most people, that's not good enough, and it wasn't for me. When I first started, that wasn't good enough for me. It was an excuse. How is this possibly a disease? If I made the choice to put this drug in my body, how is it a disease? Well, I try to read some comparisons, some studies, some different angles on it, and I don't know how many of you guys know somebody out there that has or may be suffering with COPD, right? What's COPD? Lung disease, right? How do we get lung disease? Through the choice of smoking cigarettes, right? Nobody lights up that first cigarette saying, you know what, 40, 50 years from now, I'm going to have COPD, I'm not going to be able to play with my grandchildren, I'm going to be attached to an oxygen tank, and maybe I'll even have lung cancer. No, they don't do that. They don't do that. Every puff they take, every drag of cigarette they take alters their lungs, opens up the alveoli, tightens the bronchioles, and they develop lung disease. It doesn't go away. The same thing happens with the addict that takes every drug, every sip of alcohol. They're altering their mind. Things in their brain are changing, so they don't think like you or like you or like you. They think differently. But I don't understand that. How is that possible? They know not to do it. That's not good enough for me. Well, most of us here in New Jersey drive on the New Jersey Parkway, right? Maybe even to get here today, we all drove on the Parkway, most of us. So a few years ago, I'm driving on the Parkway, and I'm passing the brick exit and exit 90, and they cleared out a bunch of trees on the side, and I'm like, oh, what's going on over there? They're doing something different. A couple weeks later, they start paving, doing different things, and now they have a new exit in, exit 89, A, B, and C, right? You take your GPS, it's not even on there. It comes up at Cedar Bridge Road, and you don't know which lane to go, and it's switching so fast, and everything's different. I don't even remember how it used to look. That's what's going on in the brain. There's construction going on in the brain of an addict that keeps on using, that keeps on abusing, that keeps on taking that medication, that the ramps and the exits are getting altered in the brain so it's not like yours. Their parkway is different than yours. The problem is they don't realize it. So you got to help them realize it. But I know I don't like that analogy. That's a stupid analogy. I know when there's road work in my head. I know when things are going wrong. I'm not addicted to drugs. I don't smoke cigarettes. I need another example. Well, I love cookies. I don't know about you guys, but I love cookies, right? Dominic, do you love cookies? So I know when I have cookies, I'm not just going to have 1, 2, or 10. I'm probably going to have the whole tray. I'm probably going to have a lot. I have that compulsion there to have more than one cookie. And working in healthcare, there's usually dessert and cookies everywhere, right? Working in healthcare. So I know that. I know that if I bring chocolate to a conference or to a presentation, most likely people are going to stay awake. Right, Vinny? See? He was about to close his eyes, but now he's awake because he caught that. I know that. Lack of control, continued use of substance despite devastating consequences. Now, luckily for me, I'm not going to get behind the wheel of a car and crash it because I had too many cookies or too many chocolates. I know that. But maybe you guys are sitting there going, you know what? I don't like sweets. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't do drugs. This is ridiculous to me. How much longer do I got? I want to get out of here. Well, at any given time, I can hop down into the crowd of wherever I'm speaking, go to any table, and pick up a cup, right? Coffee, right? This is actually full. Good job. Usually they're empty. Coffee. What happens when you see a picture of coffee? Get all warm and fuzzy inside, right? Sometimes even when you smell it, you're walking into Wawa or wherever, you smell it, you start waking up. Everybody loves coffee. Well, what's in coffee? Caffeine. Is that a drug? Yes, but people love it, right? People love it. You may love it too, even though you don't like desserts or smoke cigarettes or do drugs. You might like it too. Now, what happens when you wake up in the morning and you don't have your coffee? I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know if I want to work with somebody that looks like this old lady with a bat. Would you? So how much more do you think the person that's looking for that extra drug, that's looking for the extra Percocet, that's looking for the extra Dilaudid is going to feel? If coffee makes you feel like this, how do you think that drug makes them feel? And you're going to work with them. So the one thing you got to take away from this, guys, and I'm going to stress this a couple times throughout this presentation, is as nurses working in healthcare, we got something that most other jobs don't have, and that's gut. That's instincts. We know. We know before a patient crashes, they're going to crash. We know something's wrong when they come into a room. We know somebody's lying before they admit they're lying. We know. If you have this instinct, you got to follow it, because most of the time you're going to be right. You're going to be right, and this person may be too late before they say anything. So remember when Red Bull first came out? Way back in the day, Red Bull gives you wings, right? Little 8-ounce cans, very popular. Well, now they're almost triple the size. And why is that? Because society's addicted to caffeine. Caffeine's an accepted drug. It's pushed. It's promoted. That's how I got most of you guys here today. Come here and I'll have coffee and dessert, right? You guys walk in there, where's the coffee? How many times do you hear about a story or an accident of a drunk driver hitting a family, all 4 people in the other car die, but the drunk driver walks away not unscathed on them? It's the effect. What if you're working with a nurse that you may have a gut feeling about that? You may think something's going on, but you don't say anything. And they leave that night, they crash their car, and they're under the influence, and they kill somebody, your daughter, your husband, neighbor, friend, whoever. Because that could happen. Crazy, I know, but usually you don't think it's crazy until it happens to you. 3 possible outcomes. There's 3 possible outcomes if you don't say anything about somebody that you think is having a problem, and that's jails, institutions, and death. That's it. What's your name in the back in the purple? Heidi? Can you catch Heidi? I'm going to find out. All right. So if I think Heidi has a problem, if I think something's going on, I shouldn't feel guilty that Heidi's a single mom of 4 kids, and I'm just making that up completely, no offense, Heidi. I shouldn't take offense that Heidi's got 4 kids at home, single mom, she has to work. Now, if I report her, she could lose her job. What's going to happen to her family? What's going to happen to her kids? But I have to remember jails, institutions, and death. Everybody say that. Jails, institutions, and death, right? That's what happens if we don't say anything. So how many nurses are affected by this? What are the stats? Well, it's hard to get statistics on this because it's, anonymous. And a lot of people don't come out with the problem until it's too late or don't come out at all. They kind of bounce around the jobs. But 8 to 20% of healthcare professionals are affected by this. What does that mean? 110,000 nurses, 115,000 nurses in New Jersey, and 4 million in the country. CNN report came out about 2 months ago. You could look it on Google, whatever. They're saying about 1 in 10 nurses suffer from a problem of substance abuse. That's a lot of nurses. It's a lot of nurses. I mean, if I'm speaking to 70 to 80 people in a room, that means 7 or 8 of them most likely has a problem and can relate to any of this or know somebody that does. So why nurses? Because we know better, right? We have letters after our name. We have degrees. We have families. We're better than that. Why nurses? How many times do I walk into my triage room and somebody comes in, they sit down, they have one shoe on, full pack of cigarettes, they haven't showered in a week, and they tell me they have a $400 a day habit and are living in a tent in the woods? How do you have a $400 a day habit if you're living in a tent in the woods? Because they're going to get what they want to get. They're going to get it. An addict will get what they need. So what do you think a nurse is going to do that's coming to work with a loving and trusting environment? Everybody, knows them so well. Most nurses work so much they see them more than the regular family. That is their family. Now, don't you think they're going to walk right in and say, hey, I pulled these 2 Percocets out by accident. Can you just waste with me real quick? And then they come in and they put their finger in and they walk away and there's the 2 Percocets. Just like that. But it can't happen, right? Can't happen to anybody we work with, anybody we know. Judgmental. I am a very judgmental person, and I'm working on that. Being in an emergency room, being in critical care, you get desensitized very easily. You see the same people coming in and out, same people coming and going, right? Some of us have friends that are clean and sober, clean and sober, clean and sober. Can you sleep on my couch tonight? I don't know. Am I going to wake up with my TV gone? I don't know. This is just, I'm very judgmental. It's very difficult for me. But we have to realize that we need to help people by saying something. I had a patient that used to come in all the time in the old facility I worked at. Used to come in all the time, blood alcohol 500. Put that in perspective if you don't know, it's a 0.5, 0.3. Most of us in this room probably be comatose. So 0.5. Walking around, cursing at people, giving people the finger and everything. She's in there twice a week. So it got to the point where we were all throwing $1 into the middle of the room. At one point, we had $16 in the pot, guessing her blood alcohol level. That's 16 employees betting on this woman. Is that caring? Is that compassionate? Are we helping that lady? I mean, that's what happens. That's where the stigma goes. It's like they're not even people anymore. It's like this nurse, how could they? How could they? But we can't think like that. Rationalize. We all can rationalize ourselves into anything, right? I'm late coming here today. I'm going to get in the fast lane and do 90. It's okay because I need to get here. I'm headed to a presentation. I don't have chocolate. I got to stop by the dollar store and get chocolate. I walk into the dollar store. There's no line. I'm buying chocolates. I come out. There's 7 people on the line. What am I going to do? I'm waiting on line. Another register goes up, opens up. I see 6 people ahead of me. Do I ask them to go in front of me? I got to get out of here. It's okay. I'll be 2 seconds. I go up, pay, and I leave. I'll rationalize my way into anything. Most of us do that. How many go to a football game or a Yankee game, and you're sitting up top, and you got your binoculars out, and you see open seats, and you move down there? It's okay, right? You rationalize. How much more do you think an addict does? How much more do you think an addict makes excuses for themselves? Better than. We talked about being better than, but the addiction don't care how clean you are, how dirty you are, how many letters you have after your name. It don't care. It's going to affect us all. None of us are different. The one with the problem is often the last one to recognize there's a problem, and that's why you guys are the ones that are going to make a difference, not the person suffering. So impairment, inability to function at an acceptable level of competency or continue to practice. So impairment, most people that are impaired don't realize they're impaired. Now, I'm going to assume that most of us in this room have been intoxicated at some point in our lives. And at some point when you're intoxicated, you don't usually realize you're drunk, right? So maybe you get out on the dance floor and you start dancing it up, and I'm not going to get too crazy. I don't want my shirt to pop out. Or maybe you start cracking jokes like Kevin Hart, Chris Rock, or whatever, and everybody's laughing at you, whatever, right? You wake up the next day and you rub your eyes, you hop on Facebook or whatever you crazy kids are on nowadays, YouTube, I don't even know, and you see yourself, is that me? And you look like an idiot. But at the time, you thought you were hilarious. But now you see how dumb you were. You see how stupid you were acting. This is what's happening with the nurse that's working under the influence. They actually think they're better nurses. They actually think they're doing you a favor. They think they're helping you out. They don't realize it before it's too late and there's a mistake and the patient dies or somebody's got to lose their license and it's too late. So as nurses, what do? We self-diagnose. We take care of ourselves, right? We go to work when we're sick, but when it's 90 degrees and beautiful outside, we'll call out to go to the beach. We'll stop tomorrow. We can control this problem. We know better than. We've seen people have problems before. Environment allows accessibility to narcotics. They're everywhere. We know that. For you new nurses out there that are going into the work field, you're going to go into the work field and you're going to be asked to waste medications like I talked about earlier. You come in, you have some left over. You have 2 milligrams of morphine left over, which you're going to throw out anyway, right? I asked, what's your name? Jessica? You catch Jess? Nice job. So I asked Jessica to come in and waste me, and she wasted me, and she's looking at me, and what are you looking at me for? You don't trust me? Why are you staring? Why are you saying, what are you new? Nurses don't do that, Jess. Just put your finger in and leave. We're fine. We take care of each other. I actually had a nurse, after giving this presentation about a year ago, afterwards sat there like this. I was like, what? What's the matter? Do they give this anywhere else? Do they give this in Florida? No, not that I know of. I was a new nurse. I was working in a facility, and this one nurse kept on asking me, we'll call her Jessica, kept on asking me to waste her. So Jessica would keep on coming and asking me to waste her. I'd be in the middle of a code, and Jessica would stick her head in, can you come waste me? It got to the point where it was so bad, I guess they had books there, where they'd be writing down in the book the waste. If she looked up, she would get yelled at. So after a month or two of this, she went to her boss. And what did her boss say? The one thing you never want to hear a boss say, she's been a nurse for a long time. Don't worry about her. Anytime you get that excuse, that just means they've had a long time to develop bad habits. Don't take that. So she's been a nurse for a long time. Don't worry about her. Well, about 6 months goes by, and they're missing 7 of the lauded. 7 of the lauded. They spent 2 hours, she said, looking for this Dilaudid all over the place, couldn't find it anywhere. They find this nurse dead in the bathroom, Jessica, dead in the bathroom with a needle in her arm. She had to go to grieving counselor. She felt guilty. She felt she could talk about it now. She was in a better place, but she couldn't believe it. Like, nobody would listen to her. That's why it's so important to be able to sit there, be comfortable, and I need to talk to Jessica in a kind of loving way and keep her comfortable and waste with her. I know one facility where they had somebody that was fired for diversion. They said, you know what? It's not because I don't trust you. It's because I love you. I don't know if they're still doing that, but they did that for a few months. And it's hard. It's hard. But we have to start the practice of doing that, because what's going to happen if we don't? And the negative attitude towards nurses. So higher rates in ED in psychiatric nurses, higher rates of smoking in psychiatric nurses, significantly higher rates in critical care nurses. I know there's stress in every department, so we'll leave that answer out. But why do you think, John, that the critical care nurses have a significantly higher rate? Better drugs, that's right. Better drugs. I knew a nurse that used to take the rest of the Dilaudid pump on his break, because, somebody would waste it with him and he would throw it out, up to the roof, smoke cigarettes for a half hour while he put an IV in his arm, hooked up to the Dilaudid, and go back to work. I mean, this happens. And he was a good nurse. Oncology, more likely to binge drink. General peds, women's health, school occupational health, least likely to report substance abuse disorders. And why? Because there's stigma, right? I've given this presentation 100 times. And I know if I go home right now and I open up the newspaper and I look in there, I see the nurse of CBW Elementary School and Bayville School has been leave of absence for narcotic abuse. I'd be like, whoa, that nurse is taking care of my kid. Are you serious? But then I got to remember, jails, institutions, and death, right? I got to remember what's going to happen down here. Thank God that nurse got help. And it's hard to think like that because we're in a now world, right? We want everything now. It's hard to think about down here what's going to happen. But how? Some of you nurses sitting out here are so kind and loving and warm-hearted and gentle. All you're doing right now is picturing a monster in your head. Like, who could do such a thing? Everything's accounted for in a hospital. How could this possibly happen? How many times do you have a patient come in off a rig or off an ambulance with a bag of meds and they put it down, and you start caring for the patient, next shift comes on, you come on, 24 hours later, bag's still sitting there with all kinds of pills in there. How many times you go to give a medication and they don't know what you're giving them? They don't know. As long as you give them something white and it's a pill, they'll take it, right? They don't know. This is my wife. She's a flight attendant. So just to let you know how, when my wife goes to work, she leaves me a list of things to do, right? So when she leaves me this list of things to do, I try to go through the whole list. But I always try and do more. Go to the store, clean the bathroom, wash the floor, whatever it may be, mow the lawn, whatever it may be, right? So she'll come home from a couple days away. Sometimes she's gone 2, 3, 4 daes, and she'll go through the list. How was everything? All right, great, cool. Oh, but you didn't bring back the library books. Oh, sorry, honey, I didn't bring back the library books, but I did everything else. I did everything. That's an excuse. You're supposed to bring, no, it's not an excuse, it's a reason. The reason why I didn't bring back the library books is because I was busy doing everything else. But that's an excuse. I wanted you to do what was on the list. How are we supposed to teach kids about responsibility if you don't bring back the books? I know it's only 15 cents, but we have to teach you responsibility. You have to do what's on the list. That's all I asked for you to do what's on the list. I'm sorry. It's an excuse. It's an excuse. It's rationalizing. And that's what this addict is doing. We do it every day. We don't realize it. Don't you think if somebody that was addicted to drugs, they don't realize what they're doing. They don't realize how they're thinking. They don't realize the exits. Everything they're doing, they're making excuses for. They don't really need it. They don't really need the drugs. They're drug seeking. They're going to get a script anyway when they leave. I'm going to waste it anyway. I'm going to throw this medication out, right? Or, man, I'm such a better nurse. man, Jillian's so lucky to be working with me today because I'm such a good nurse. That's how they feel, not realizing they're impaired. So how do we recognize this? Now that I got you guys all paranoid. How do we recognize this? How do we recognize when a nurse is suffering? How do we recognize something's going on? Well, there's always the obvious, right? There's always the obvious that we know whether you're a nurse or not. Slurred speech, nodding off, unkept, smell of alcohol or on the breath, excess use of mints, gums. Now, if it gets to this point, there's a problem. I was at one facility where they asked me to come in and speak, right? So I go into this facility, and there was a nurse there. What's your name? Sarah. We'll call her Sarah. What's your name? Jillian. And we'll call her Jillian. So Sarah goes from the 7th floor to the 4th floor. Jillian is already working on the 4th floor. So a bunch of nurses come up to Sarah and say, hey, watch out for Jillian. What do you mean watch out for Jillian? 4 or 5 different nurses come up to Sarah and say, just don't waste with her. She uses a lot of medications. She's cleaning the curtains in between patients. There's something weird's going on there. Just don't mess with her. Stay away from her. Now, if it gets to a point where multiple people are talking things about you, like they think something's going on, there's a problem, right? There's a problem. So Sarah, being a good nurse as she is, she decides to keep a log for 2 weeks and what's going on. She starts logging different things she's noticing, different funny things she's noticing. She goes to her boss, gives her the log. They do an investigation a month or 2 later, because it takes time. Never think you're being ignored. A month or 2 later, they approach Jillian, and Jillian's terminated. But guess what? 4 other nurses got terminated with her that weren't using. They weren't in the middle of a problem or anything, but they just didn't say anything. So if that addict doesn't care about their license, they're not going to care about your license. And that's exactly what happened there. Forging her name, working on her patients, giving meds out behind her back, taking meds out under their numbers. And 4 nurses lost their licenses. Nobody said anything. So this does affect you. If you take nothing away from today, don't think this doesn't affect you. It affects everybody out there that's working on that floor with that nurse. The dedicated worker, always volunteering for overtime, stays late, and medicates. We all work with somebody like that. I'm not saying they're guilty. All I'm saying is be aware. If your gut goes off, if your instinct goes off, and you're working with somebody like this, say something. That's it. Because the majority of the time, this is the worker that's going to have a problem, right? Go to work, 50, 60, 70 bucks an hour, free drugs, everybody loves you. Usually got free coffee and cookies as well. Why not, right? But what about the little things, guys? What about the subtle things, you know? What about the subtle things? What's your name? Ryan. So I've been working with Ryan a long time. She's always very pleasant, very nice, and for some reason, she's been very cranky lately, irritable. I don't know what's going on, but something's just not right. I'm going to keep my eye on her. Long sleeves, warm weather. We all work with people that wear long sleeves all the time, even if it's 90 degrees out. I'm talking about the person you've been working with for a long time. Now all of a sudden is wearing, the person you're working with that doesn't wear long sleeves all the time, now all of a sudden they're wearing long sleeves. Numerous corrections, med errors, there's patterns. Patterns are going to start to develop that you're going to see. When somebody needs more, because they always need more, sometimes it takes 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, they're always going to need more. Errors are going to happen. Corrections are going to happen. Altered MD orders. Ineffective pain relief. This is a big one. One of the nurses that I called for diversion in the facility I worked at wasn't even reported by a nurse. It was by a doctor, because they kept calling the doctor, hey, I need more payments, need more payments. None of the patients they took care of got pain relief. So finally, the doctor said, what's going on with this person? What's going on? So they investigate it. You know, they got to go to the guy sitting in a box looking at all the standard deviations and equations as they're pulling meds out of the Pyxis machine, because it's very difficult to get somebody, you know, I accuse Jillian. She's not going to get pulled in that day. They're going to have to watch. They're going to have to look at things. And there's somebody watching everything you take out. Everything's computerized. Everything's digitalized until they have enough evidence to sit them down, and they will get caught, especially with the errors that occur after patterns start breaking, right? So ineffective pain relief is huge. If I'm working in a facility and I'm covering somebody's break, or I'm working with somebody where I know that every time I take care of them, their patients on that second dose always feel relief, but that first dose they didn't. Think about that, you know? Every time Sarah takes care of a patient, she gives them a dose of morphine. But when I give them the morphine, they feel a lot better. Why is that? Look at the patterns. Why wouldn't we say something? How many of you guys have kids in here? Right? Most of us have kids in here. Some of us will someday. How many of you guys tell your kids, no matter what, you make sure you tell every one of your friends when they do something bad? You come to me, you let me know so I can say something to their parents. Does your father tell you that? Stop lying. Most of us say, don't be a tattletale, right? We're brought up in a world where we say, don't be a tattletale. I was brought up in a Scarface era. Don't be a rat. Nobody wants to be, right? Snitches get stitches, right? Don't be a rat. Don't tattletale. So how hard would it be for you to say something about somebody that you think is having a problem? I was actually having this exact conversation with somebody yesterday. I invited him here to this presentation. They said, what is exactly this about? I kind of told him. He goes, I don't know. In order to report somebody, you need to have hardcore evidence and undoubted true evidence in order to report somebody. And I said, but what if you don't? What if the hardcore evidence is a needle in the arm while they're laying in the bathroom? You know, we have guts, we have instincts. If you feel something, say something. What's the worst that can happen? You're wrong, but we have this loyalty to each other. You know, we're like family. We work together all the time. 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 16s, 20-hour shifts. We work together all the time. We have this loyalty. I've been working with, who was the cranky one in here that I picked on? Ryan, right? You were cranky, right? So I've been working with Ryan a long time, but maybe her mother-in-law just moved in. Maybe her boyfriend's been miserable, just saying. Who knows? That's why she's cranky. Maybe it has nothing to do with drugs. But I gotta be able to take that leap and follow my gut and my instincts and know that jails, institutions, and death if I don't say something, right? How about guilt? What if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? At least one person after I give a presentation every time calls me aside and says, you know what, Ken? I can't, what if I report somebody and I'm wrong and there's nothing there, then nobody's gonna ever trust me? Or fear, you know, fear of being blackballed, blacklisted, shoved in the corner. We all know working in healthcare, working on our units, working on our floors, they can get pretty cliquey sometimes, right? So now what if I report somebody that's part of that clique? What if I report Heidi? Now Heidi's whole clique, which runs the show, runs the ER, doesn't want anything to do with me. Are you willing to take that chance? Or would you rather see Heidi dead and her 4 kids separated? I mean, that's how you gotta think. It's crazy, but that's how you gotta think. We have to think what's gonna happen down here if we don't say something. Talk to that person, not about that person. I know sometimes it's hard to do. We can't always talk to people about problems. I understand that. Use your head. Pick diligently. But I tell you what, man, every conversation, most conversations I walk in on the unit, on the floor, when I come into it, that's a really good conversation, people giggling, laughing, having a good time, are about other people, right? I work with Sarah all the time. She'll do an EKG, walk out of the room, and never put anybody on the monitor. Why won't Sarah put anybody on the monitor? I can't stand it. She does EKG. Did you tell her that? Well, no, she should know. I shouldn't have to tell her. Talk to that person, not about that person. The last one to recognize they have a problem is often the one with the problem. Heidi doesn't know she has a problem, so I got to say something. Jillian doesn't know, so I got to say something. I don't want to, but I have to, because otherwise it's not just her license, it may be mine. So what do we do to help this person? What do we do when we have that gut instincts? What do we do when we know when we believe somebody's having trouble? Well, I'll tell you what we do. We accept the responsibilities and duties. We say, go ahead, relax, take it easy. I'll do this for you. I'll chart for you. Go step outside. Go smoke a cigarette. Go take 5. Go lay down. We take care of them, right? That's what we do. Avoiding, withdrawing. They're in pod A. I'm going to be in pod B. But if I take their vitals, if I triage your patient, if I start an IV, if I do anything for them, our names are attached. If I waste with them, at some point, a 12-hour, 8-hour shift, your names are probably going to be attached to the same patient going somewhere, and then all bets are off. Your license will be affected. Denying the condition minimizes the severity of the problem. We're nurses. We don't have problems, right? We know better. Protecting the nurse, the loyalty, the stigma, you know? What's your name? Vinny's an awesome nurse. Everybody loves Vinny. Now, if somebody reported him, oh, I didn't throw you chocolate, Vinny. I apologize. Now, if somebody reported him, that could affect him, and people might look at him differently. But you know what? What if he dies? What if he loses his children? What if he loses his house? That's how I got to think. Jails, institutions, and death, right? Believing a nurse can control use and behavior, accepting nursing rationalizations and excuses, or if most of us have loved ones or friends that have this disease, enduring the behavior. We just put up with it. Not because we want to. We just do it because we love them, right? And that's what we do. So what does this mean? Put it all together. What does this mean? We do all the wrong things for all the right reasons. I will tie a perfect noose, come hand it to Ryan, walk away going, you see that noose I just tied? That was a good noose, right? Not knowing she's going to use it to hang herself. She just asked me to tie a noose, so I tied her a noose. It was a great noose. I gave it to her. And she's going to hang herself with it. That's what we do. So what else can we do? Somebody's going to have to sit down and talk to this person. Somebody's going to have to sit down and talk to this person. Not you. All you got to do is report it, guys. Go to your manager. Go to your boss. Go to wherever you got to go so they could be talked to and approach you. Because otherwise, bad things are going to happen. And if you're sitting here watching this, or if you're sitting at home watching this, or if you're not in New Jersey and you're in Pennsylvania, Florida, wherever you may be, and you haven't worked with anybody that was terminated for substance abuse disorder or diverting narcotics, you will. At some point, you will. So I want everybody to write this number down. And the reason why I want you to write this number down is because if you're sitting there right now thinking about somebody you work with that has this problem that I don't want you to feel uncomfortable writing it down, I ask everybody to write it down. What is this number? Well, I go to my boss. I go to my manager and say, what's your name back there? Charles. Can you catch? All right. So I say, Charles is just, I don't know, something's just going off with him. He's wearing long sleeves, he's cranky, he's irritable, just something's just not right with him. And then my manager goes, Charles? He's one of our best workers. He works 20 hours a day. He does nights. He does days. He does charge. He transports his own patients. We can't get rid of Charles. What are we going to do? Well, then what do? I do. That crazy loud guy said to report him, and I report him, and nobody's listening to me. What do I do? Well, of course, you go to the next manager, but you can also call this number. This is the number for RAMP. RAMP, what's that? What's RAMP? I didn't know what RAMP was. I was a nurse for 7 years. I know what RAMP was. Recovery and Monitoring Program, and for the sake of this video, of New Jersey. 46 states have an alternative to discipline program. See, back in the day, if you got caught doing something like this, they come in with handcuffs to take you out, and that was it. Say goodbye to your license, say goodbye to everything. But they realized that really didn't help anybody or anything or any situation. So what can we do to make this better? Well, let's watch them. Let's monitor them. Do you know what RAMP is? Oh. So I didn't do this today, but usually when I do presentations, I hand out a questionnaire. I ask 3 questions, and one of them is, do you know what RAMP is? And the first question on there, it's A, B, and C. Do you know what RAMP is? 7% of the 462 nurses that I've spoken to say, yes, I do. I'm very aware of what it is. 62% of the 462 nurses that I've spoken to say, I've never heard of that. And not only that, half of the nurses that have 15-plus year experiences never heard of it. And that's no knock on what RAMP is doing. That's just a lack of knowledge on our part. There's no education on this to the staff. There's no education on that to us to know that there's something to help. Now, if I'm going to report somebody, if I'm going to want to get them help, I have to know there's help there, right? I have to know Heidi's going to be okay and her kids are going to be okay if I report her. How do I know that? Well, there's RAMP. There's a recovery and monitoring program. One of the first places in New Jersey that had this put into the literature of their contract was Southern Ocean Medical Center. And in the literature of the contract, it says if you're reported for substance abuse disorder, that your leave of absence for 12 weeks, so you still get paid. You can still afford the ramen noodles and the loaf of bread and the peanut butter and all that stuff. And then unless there's no other prior to level 2 infractions or no confirmed negative patient impact, which if that happens, then we got a problem. As long as the employee acknowledges a substance abuse problem and agrees to enter and remain compliant with RAMP. So as long as you're in this, you're okay, you have your license, but that sounds too easy, right? How is that fair? How is that fair? This person just put everybody's licenses on the line, all these patients, how is that fair? They should be locked up, thrown in jail. They knew not to use drugs, they knew that. How is this fair? Well, it's not easy. It's not a slap on the wrist. You don't go away for 28 days and come back. You don't go to IOP or intensive outpatient for 3 hours a day for 5 weeks and say you're okay, come on back. There's a lot of things involved, and the first thing is fully accountable. Why do you got to be fully accountable? For those of you who have taken care of an addict or an alcoholic or no one, what's the first thing they do? Blame everybody else, right? It's never their fault. It's never their fault. It's their wife's fault, it's their brother's fault, it's their sister's fault, God's fault, it's country's fault. It's not their fault. They got to look at themselves, look at the choices they make. They have to start to recognize that there's been some road work going on in their head, and they need to recognize the ramps. Because those exits that were there on the GPS from 1992 aren't there anymore. They got to upload that. They got to get new data in there. They got to see where the roads are going now. Not doing drugs, not drinking alcohol, that's the easy part. The hard part's for them to realize this. Because it is impossible to think and act the way they were before when they were using and not use and continue to do that. And that's what this helps you do. It's a 5-year program. Where were you guys sitting in this room right now? Think about where you were 5 years ago. Probably a lot different situation, right? All different ages in here. It's a long time. 5 years is a long time to be in a program like this. And when you're done, when you graduate from it, no record of it, alternative discipline action upon completion. I will say this, New Jersey models their deal a lot with Florida. And every program in the country is a little different. Some are 2 years, some are 5 years. I'm going to go through New Jersey's deal because that's where we're at right now. I'm speaking to people in New Jersey, and that's what we're going to learn about. So why would I want to work with them? Why would I want to work with somebody that's in recovery? Why would I want to work with somebody that has a drug problem? Why would I want to work with somebody that just lied to their peers and their family members? Well, that's crazy. Well, after doing the inpatient, after doing the outpatient, they got to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. What does that mean? Does everybody in here know what NA and AA is? Right? So we all know what NA is, right? Now, nobody knows really why they work, but they know that if you go to them, you don't use. So they say, go to 90 meetings in 90 days because it's going to work for you. 90 meetings, 90, and then you got to do 3 meetings a week. And we don't care if you got basketball and football and kids, a bike, a car, a bus, whatever you got to do. If you got money, you don't got money. You got to go to 3 meetings a week to work on yourself, become fully accountable. Plus, you got to go to a ramp meeting. What does that mean? Ramp nurses are everywhere, guys. You've worked with them. You're probably working them right now. You don't even know it. Maybe you do. It's probably one of the better nurses. No, I'm just playing. So they're everywhere. So you got to go to 3 meetings a week, a ramp meeting, and during this ramp meeting, you get together with other ramp nurses because not many crackheads get hired back in the crack house, right? Not many people go back to a place where they're handing out their drug of choice to everybody and working and getting paid for it. But this nurse needs to go back to work and hand out medication. Well, how are they supposed to do that? By helping out each other. Also, there's daily check-ins. And this is the part where I like to ask the crowd and say, you know what, if you had to wake up every day, Charles, if you had to wake up every day and check in, and then find out you had to give 2 or 3 urines a month, right? How comfortable would you feel with your department or wherever you're working right now that everybody there would pass on a urine test 2 to 3 times a month? I wouldn't feel too comfortable with my department in most places I work, and you would probably say the same. Most people that will get tested 2 to 3 times a month, something's going to happen. This nurse has to get tested 2 or 3 times a month, check in every day, go to meetings, go to ramp meetings, and if they don't do any of this, they can't work. They can't work. So if you're working with somebody in ramp, you're working with somebody that put in a lot of time and effort, and you should feel pretty safe. I feel more safe working with somebody that's in the program than somebody that isn't. 6-month leave of absence is also up there, which I skipped over. And the reason why I skipped over is that I just want to return and stress to you guys about the lack of knowledge on this out there. There's not much information out this on there, so it's very difficult for this nurse to get back to work, let alone find the job. There's restrictions, no 16-hour shifts, no overtime, and monthly evaluations. Why monthly evaluations? Because the relapse starts a long time before you actually take the drug. It's up here. It's when they start thinking that, oh, wait, the roads, that road's over there? No, I'm going to take this exit. This is the exit I used to always take instead. The habits start forming, and that's where the monthly evaluations come in. So how common is this? 571 nurses currently, as of July 2016, currently in the state of New Jersey. 261 new members this past year alone. 261 new members. And 279 currently employed. So what does that show you? Half the people that are actually in ramp are working. What does that mean? It's hard to go back to work. So if you're going back with a ramp nurse, you know they're doing a good job. You know they're being fully accountable. Also, there's not too much knowledge out there for facilities that are hiring that don't know about ramp. How enticing would it be if Jessica and Ryan both applied for a job, and I like them both the same, but Jessica was telling me that she was in a program because she's addicted to drugs and she's in recovery. If I don't know anything about ramp and what they have to do and stay committed to, I'm probably going to go towards Ryan. But I need to have that knowledge to know. 80 graduates, so it is possible to do all this and graduate, and 36 ramp meetings statewide. So I'll sum it up with this, guys. Addiction is a disease. It's something that develops chronic and progressive over a long period of time. Nurse professionals have no immunity. It does not care if you're a nurse, an NP, a tech, a PCA, whatever. It don't matter what you're doing, where you work, or what your name is. It don't care. It don't matter how much money you're making. It don't matter how successful you are. Denial is the chief symptom and an obstacle to treatment. Nursing professionals won't seek help. Even the few that realize they have a problem will go down with the ship. You know, it's been proven that somebody will not get out of a leaky boat into another boat because they're not sure about that boat if it's safe or not. Like they'll stay in that leaky boat and go down with the ship because they're just holding on. They're holding on. Intervention is necessary. Or jails, institutions, and death, right, guys? If you guys don't say something, this is what's going to happen. That's the bottom line. If you take nothing else away from here, as you walk out these doors and you go back into your nursing world and you go back home today and by dinner time, you probably forget all this, right? You go to work 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, all of a sudden something goes off in your belly. You think something's funny and you know what, John, something's going on with John. I don't know what it is. And something's just not right. You know, that crazy loud guy was talking about this, I think, back at, yeah, I think I'm just going to report just to say something just to be safe. Remember it, guys. Just say something. Now, here's the deal. Most of us grew up, and most of us still here, once an addict, always an addict, right? You put a needle in your arm, you're probably going to die, like higher than 90% or something, right? So I was at a conference one time where somebody was speaking. He said, you know, I saw something different. I saw something different with nurses. They would come into my facility. They would leave my rehab. They would leave and not come back. Everybody else would come back, come back, come back. This was in Pennsylvania. And he said they would come in and not come back. What's going on here? Well, Pennsylvania has a program called PNAP, and they're under monitoring. They're in a program. So instead of walking out of rehab like most people do, they leave rehab and they have their box of tools, and maybe there's tools in there they don't like or they're not comfortable with, and they say, all right, go ahead, go out into the world, good luck to you, you know? Go back into your home, into your town, keep working, and you'll be all right. Okay, thanks for the help, guys. Now you have this nurse. Oh, and by the way, check in with me every day. And I'm gonna test your urine twice a month. And keep going to meetings, because if you don't, you can't work. That nurse is probably gonna be a lot more successful. And the outcomes are pretty favorable. How favorable are they? Well, 73% of the nurses that go through the RAMP program in New Jersey after 1 year remain clean and sober, and hopefully a lot longer than that. How good is that? It's the best in the country. Florida, a close second for you watching in Florida. 73%. So I feel pretty good. I'm picking on you again, Heidi. I feel pretty good reporting Heidi with their 4 kids and mortgage payment, knowing that she's probably going to be in a much better place 3, 4, 5 years from now. That's how we have to think. We have to think we're helping this person down here, not just here to get through the shift, not just to get through the next one, not just to not look like that old lady with the bat from a half hour ago, right? There was a provision in the Code of Ethics. A lot of us skim through this. You know, we get hired at a job, go through orientation. This is one of the slides that we're usually texting on our phone when it's on, whatever. But there's a revision that says care and compassion to colleagues, not just our people we take care of, not just the patients, but our colleagues, each other. We got to care for each other as well. Be alert and take appropriate action. It's not easy, guys. It's not easy. So here's the fun part, all right? Here's some people that are in recovery that you may not have known about. Does everybody know who this is? Pretty successful. She's in recovery. Russell Brand. Russell Brand, he said, drugs weren't my problem. Life was my problem. Drugs was the solution. He's in recovery from IV heroin. Steve-O. I don't know how many of you guys remember Steve-O, Jackass era. You know, I grew up during the Jackass era. Haven't seen much of him lately because he's not high anymore. He's been clean for, I think, a little over 5 years now. Samuel L. Jackson said he used to be a raging alcoholic. It gives all his credit to his career from AA. Eric Clapton, while clean and sober, watched his son fall 40 stories to his death and remain clean and sober. Tim Allen, a lot of good mugshots of him on Google. Oprah, a lot of people didn't know this about Oprah. She gave an interview in the 90s saying there's nothing she wouldn't do for crack cocaine in her 20s. She's pretty successful now, right? Elton John, I got all shapes and sizes, guys. Brett Favre, and he came out in the 90s saying he had an addiction to painkillers. It don't care. So I threw everything on there, all shapes and sizes, threw some steroids on there, Schwarzenegger in the corner. I mean, there's all kinds of different stories. Robert Downey Jr. a few years back crawled into his neighbor's room, fell asleep on the floor next to a baby, his neighbor's baby, high on heroin, thrown in jail. A few years ago, he's the highest grossing actor in the world. So there is hope. And I know these are famous people, but I'm just trying to put people that you know that have recovery and have success. But unfortunately, not everybody does. 2 famous songs, Amy Winehouse, Rehab and Suicide, and what happened to her? Ultimately, she took her life. Chris Farley can make everybody laugh except himself. Robin Williams, I started doing this shortly after he passed away, and you could just see the pain in his eyes even though he's smiling. And my personal favorite, Ken Rodenbaugh. Joined RAMP February 28, 2013. And that was the look on my face when somebody told me I had a problem. Because I didn't know I had a problem. I didn't realize I had a problem. I was going to stop tomorrow. I was okay. I was a better nurse. I was just going to do it at one time just to get over how I felt. You know, I was going to throw it out anyway. I was a good nurse. I got awards, pats on the back. I had no idea. And I don't know if I was sitting where you're sitting right now, watching some guy up here yell at me for 45 minutes, if it would have changed what I was doing or changed how I thought, but maybe it would have changed how you thought, or maybe it would have changed what you were doing. And you would have said something, and you would have helped me. That's what I want you guys to take from this. You can help somebody. You can save a life. You can save somebody that you work with, or jails, institutions, and death. Thank you, guys.
How comfortable are you working with someone in recovery? Do you think there is a further need for education in substance abuse and nursing? How would your staff respond if there was a suspicion of another nurse working while impaired? 53% of 416 nurses answered neutral, uncomfortable, or very uncomfortable when asked how they felt when working with someone in recovery. After listening to Yes You Can, that number plummeted all the way down to 9%, with all but 2 of the nurses agreeing that there was a further need for education on this topic. Don't wait until it's too late. Educate your staff today. Please feel free to show this presentation to your nurses, staff, students, or anyone else you feel it would make a difference to. Contact Ken if you would like for him to come visit you and provide an experience that is a little different every time, with always the same results, knowing yes, you can make a difference.